Cool. So today's day 2 of our summer speech camp. We're going to start off by doing some sharing out. So I'm going to have you guys talk and participate today, if possible, just so that we can get a dialogue going and I can, it is a speech camp, so I can better understand how you speak. We're going to go ahead and analyze great speeches through the use of the toolbox. Now, the toolbox is like methods that great speakers use in order to become better at speaking and sound more confident and sound more realistic when speaking. And so I'll introduce that. And then to wrap things up, we'll begin choosing what type of speech you want to do for the showcase at the end and begin practicing. Now, again, this is like a summer camp, but we're going to use one speech that you're going to try and perfect throughout this next month in order to build your speaking skills in general, because whatever you do here will obviously translate over to anything else that you do, say, in school or other speeches that you give, right? All right, so to start out, for the students who were here last time and the students that are here today, so I believe that would be Alicia, Katie, and Andrew should have been here as well. We're gonna do some homework check, see if you guys did any of the homework that I basically assigned. It wasn't too hard, it was just watching some of the speech state performances and then just seeing like, what'd you like about them? Why were they good, right? And then what would you try and take away from them, all right? Now, I guess let me just ask, and you guys can unmute or put in the chat. Did you watch any of these state performances? And if you didn't, also let me know that. So Alicia, Katie, Andrew, did you guys watch any of the state performances on YouTube?
Oh, sorry, I didn't, because I was having EQAO today and tomorrow, and I have a presentation just due today, so I don't have time for it.
Okay, no worries, no worries. We can also watch them together. How about Katie and Andrew?
Wait, can you hear me? Can
Yeah.
you hear me now? I'm so sorry. I completely forgot about them, so I didn't watch it.
All right, and no worries as well. And then Andrew, I think you're in the car, but were you able to watch any of the videos?
Yes, I'm watching a TED that's about the kind of the Minecraft developer trying to make a mod for the special children that like having kind of like that having kind of variety of problem kind of like, for example, cancer for them, and yeah.
Okay, wait, that's really interesting. Was that a IHSA speech performance or was that just another speech?
TED.
TED speech. Okay, that's great. So I'm glad, Andrew, you watched at least a professional speaker or someone on TED who gave a speech, because watching basically any speeches that are public out there are going to be good speeches to watch. And so it didn't seem like a lot of you did watch these speeches, but that's completely fine because not a lot of people are here today anyways. What I'm going to do is we will watch some of them together and go over some of them, just so you guys have a better understanding of, what a great speaker does and what a great speech consists of, right? And so I guess what I'll do is I will introduce the toolbox first. So the speech toolbox is essentially things that we utilize in speech. I guess I'll show it here, such as vocal variety, gestures, eye contact, the use of space, pauses, intonation, and emphasis. These are all things that we use in a speech to enhance the speech, make it more conversational, make it more powerful, make it so that the audience actually cares about what you're talking about, right? And so I'm going to introduce each of these things, and then we will actually watch some speeches and analyze, what these speakers do and how they use the toolbox so that it makes a great speech, right? And so you will be able to see the exact components that make a speech great. All right, so to start off, we have the first is vocal variety. Now, what is vocal variety? Vocal variety consists of a lot of things, and some of these things might even fall under vocal variety, but it's a lot about the ups and downs of your voice, high pitched, low pitched, right? Loud, soft, quiet, right? Different vocal variety conveys different emotions or emphasizes things differently. So let's say you're telling a story that's really sad, right? If you're telling a story about someone's dog who died, or someone who got into a car accident, or someone who's being bullied at school, right? Your voice is usually going to be lower, more quiet, right? And you might even talk a bit slower in order to emphasize that point, right? You're not going to be all jolly, holly, happy, really loud, right? Up tones, right? You're not going to be talking like that because it's a very somber mood. And by using your voice and that vocal variety, you can actually create a tone, create a mood that transcends the audience so that the audience also feels exactly what you're feeling at that time, right? So vocal variety, ups and downs, right, are very important because you don't want your speaking to be very boring. If everything you said was monotonous in one tone, it would be very boring, very fast. People wouldn't want to listen to it. So for example, if I just talk like this the entire time, no one actually likes to listen to someone talk like this, especially for 1 hour, right? That would be really boring to listen to. So that's why you see sometimes when I start my sentences, I start really loud, talk up and then down, right? Different vocal variety makes it so that your audience is still paying attention and, enjoys what they're listening in terms of, how you're speaking, right? And so vocal variety is something everyone can work on. And there's so much to work on. You're never going to get it perfect, right? But you want a steady vocal variety that is unique to yourself, but also, makes the audience want to listen to you. All right. And then the second thing we have here are gestures. Now, you might even see me do this on camera, as you can see, even in this little box. I use gestures a lot. And so when speaking, a lot of people do use gestures, and it's actually very important because gestures emphasize a point even more. When you're speaking, a lot of the times it's just the voice, right? But I think there's a statistic on this or something where it's like, if you just use your voice, people will only listen or understand 20% of what you're saying. If you use gestures or hand motions, they'll understand 30%. If you use both together, they'll understand around 50%, right? So gestures are very important in usually emphasizing a point or something you're trying to say. If you're trying to get across a certain point, and using a gesture allows them to draws the audience attention to that point visually as well as auditorily, right? So gestures are a great way to keep the audience's attention once again. And then something, I guess I'll stand up for this. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. So gestures, you usually want them above the waist, right? So you don't want to gesture down here, especially on camera, you can't even see it, and no one's going to be paying attention to stuff down here. You want it in like a rectangle from like your waist up and not like above your neck, right? So your gestures usually fall somewhere around here, and they're going to be in this general vicinity. So when you talk, you do want to talk standing up in a great posture, and then talk. You can use your hands when you talk and gesture different ways. Now, a lot of these gestures, like they can seem unnatural, especially if you're someone who usually doesn't use your hands when speaking. It might seem weird to just start using your hands, right? Just do it what feels correct, right? You don't have to gesture. You don't have to over gesture. You don't have to go crazy with it. Just talk like you would normally do and try and emphasize some stuff with natural movements, right? So gestures are something everyone works on. I even continue to work on them till this day, and you can never get them perfect, right? It's just personal preference and what appeals to the audience. Now, this next thing is eye contact. And this is probably one of the most daunting things for everyone, even the most experienced of speakers, because eye contact, a lot of people don't like looking people in the eye, right? Now, over Zoom, it's a lot easier because you're not actually looking at people directly. You're more so either looking at the camera directly or looking at a screen. But if you're in person, you definitely want eye contact to be more slow and pause on people's eyes. So actually look people in the eyes and don't like scan the room all the time. Don't look all around. Don't look at the ceiling when you're talking, right? Try and look at one person for like a few seconds, then move to the next person, then move to the next person for a few seconds. That's how you would utilize eye contact to get across a point once again, right? All of these things in the toolbox are more so to drive your point home to the audience so that they are actually listening to what you're saying, right? If you fail to utilize this, the audience is just going to fall asleep, or they're not going to listen to you, or they're going to forget everything you say, right? But the more you utilize these tools, the more they'll listen, the more they'll understand what you're saying, and the more they'll care about what you're saying, right? Because at the end of the day, any speech that you give, you want people to pay attention and care about what you're talking about. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time, right? So eye contact wise, you want to kind of hold someone's attention for a few seconds with eye contact, then move on to the next person, then the next person. If you have trouble looking someone in the eyes, that's perfectly normal. Everyone has that problem. And so the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to be. At the start of my speech career, I wasn't really comfortable doing that. But as the years went on, my eye contact became second nature. I would look at people, move to the next person, next person, next person. You can also look at people's like foreheads or right in between their eyes or their nose if you don't actually want to look directly at their eyes. Right? So there are different techniques that we can go over for all of these. And in some of the later weeks and classes, I'll go into all of these a bit more in depth. So we'll use videos and dive into each of these toolbox tips more in depth per class, right? And so each day we'll like focus on one of them. I'm giving you a general overview today, just so that you guys know what it is and can start practicing. This fourth one is using your space. Now, again, this is more utilized in person, obviously not over Zoom, but even say in a classroom, if you're giving a presentation, it's a lot more impactful if you use the entire classroom. If you're given a lot of space to walk around, to move around, to talk with, then use it instead of just standing, say, behind a podium or standing in one spot. Because the more you move around, the more the audience's eyes and attention also move around, and it's not boring. They're not staring at one person the whole time. In speech competitions, you usually have a 3-point structure where you would move from the middle to, say, the right side of the room, then back to the middle, then to the left side, and then back to the middle for your conclusion, right? So you're moving around throughout the speech, and it's very, it follows very naturally for the audience to view from, say, left to right, So using your space can also refer to not only physical movement, like feet moving your entire body, but again, like gestures, body language, right? Being very confident out there. Utilize your space and your body to be confident and to capture the audience's attention, right? I'm actually going to jump down to intonation and emphasis real quick because this is still vocal, and the last thing, pauses, is a bit more important. I'm actually going to go ahead and change this real quick because I really like pauses, and like pauses are very important as well. So intonation and emphasis. This kind of falls under vocal variety, but this is like more so, how are you sounding in your voice and what words are you emphasizing specifically, right? So if you have a sentence and you want to drive home that last word or something, like let's say he went out to walk his dog at 2 a.m., right? You need to emphasize 2 a.m. because that's like the surprising part. Why would someone walk their dog at 2 a.m.? Like the rest of the sentence is, more casual, and then boom, you punch. It's like either a joke or something shocking or surprising. You change your intonation and you emphasize it, right? So tone can be utilized so much to create suspense, to set up jokes, right? And to divert expectations. Now, that's also very important in speech, right? Emphasizing different things allows them, the reader to, or the audience to focus on that thing, or also to like kind of juxtapose it with what you've said already, right? Or make it very contrasting to something you've already said. All right, and that again goes along with vocal variety. We can always work on that. And then lastly, we have pauses. Now, pauses are way more important than you think. Again, it's weird, right? Pauses are basically when you're not talking. So how is not talking gonna help your speech, right? It's kind of counterintuitive. But pauses are actually incredibly important in speech because one, it gives you a break when speaking, but two, it also gives the audience a break, and it can be utilized to create, like I said, suspense or drama or set up jokes or literally anything. Create emphasis as well. Pauses can create emphasis. So like, again, I guess I'll use the same example. So it's like, he went out to walk his dog at 2 a.m., right? Now, there's a pause there, right? So I purposely made a pause after 2 because it could be a.m. or p.m., right? And then that pause creates suspense, and then I emphasized a.m. as well, right? So any sentence, honestly, can have pauses. And as you can see right now, I'm also speaking with some pauses, right? They can be very slight. They don't have to be super long, but also pauses sometimes, like if you just pause naturally, you know, people might think it's a pause when you're actually trying to remember like the next thing you're trying to say, right? Some things like that. You can utilize pauses in your natural speaking, just like you would any other time, right? And so those are all very powerful tools. We will go over them more in detail again later on, but I just wanted to introduce all of them to you for now. And so what I'm going to do now is, we're going to understand the toolbox with an example. Now, I think last class we watched my impromptu state championship performance, but my brother was also a very talented speaker who won extemporaneous speaking multiple times, all right? So what I'm going to do, let me think. Let me see what else I have for today and the time. So we have a break. Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna play this video of my brother speaking. Now, what I want you all to do is obviously listen along and then try and identify some of the toolbox things that he's using. All right. Actually, wait, I'm not gonna play Brian's. I'm gonna play another one because Brian's is actually kind of long. Okay, so I'm gonna use another impromptu speaking one, and I'm gonna take, I'll take Sarah Kingsbury. So what I want you all to do is look, right? Remember these toolbox tips. I'm gonna put all these in the chat just so everyone remembers them. And then go ahead, while you're watching this, think about all of these tips and try and identify what Sarah Kingsbury does well, right? Which one of these tools is she doing well, and try and identify them specifically where they are and how she does them, all right? And then we'll watch this and then we'll discuss a little bit. So I'll have you guys unmute at the very end in order to share out what you thought, all right? Now, can everyone give me a thumbs up if you understand what you're doing and if you can see this video so far, all right? So Alicia, Katie, and Andrew, perfect. So as you watch this video, as you watch this speech, remember, keep in mind these things, and then I'll have you guys discuss that, all right?
Okay. When Norman Borlaug went to the University of Minnesota, many people thought he would just fulfill the sport he had always done, wrestling. He was supposed to go through the wrestling program at Minnesota and become a professional wrestler. But Norman Borlaug decided at University of Minnesota Twin Cities that he loved biology. He decided that wrestling alone just wasn't for him. Now, he was expected to go off with his jock friends and party, but what he really wanted to do was hit the books. So that's what he decided to do. And because he stuck with biology, he was able to win a 1965 Nobel Peace Prize for the invention of dwarf wheat. And that's no short thing to laugh at. He understood that if he was able to create dwarf wheat, it could save thousands of African children when they couldn't grow wheat in their own sub-Saharan desert lands. Because he was interested in biology and changed the dream that he originally had, he realized that that was perfectly fine, and being adaptable allowed him for success in future life. That brings us to today's C.S. Lewis quotation, which states, "It is never too late to get a new goal or have a new dream." What C.S. Lewis is saying is that often we get so trapped in one goal or one dream that we can't see the outer possibilities. What we must recognize is no matter our age, we can try new things and enjoy them. In short, we should be able to adapt. And this is for 3 key reasons. First, if we're able to adapt, we may find a new talent.
Next, if we're able to enjoy change, we'll be able to make the most of our time on Earth. But finally, we can inspire others to have change in their lives as well. So first, when we hit the Sochi Olympics, we're able to see how if we are able to adapt, we can find new talents. Lolo Jones in the 2012 Olympics in London was a track runner, but after a disappointing 4th place finish, she decided that the track she had been on all her life just wasn't for her. So she did what any rational Olympian would do. She took up bobsledding. She decided that bobsledding was going to be her new forte, and it was something totally different than what she had tried before. She realized that many people thought she couldn't change because she was an older Olympian, and it just seemed like her athletic dreams were at an end. But she realized, as C.S. Lewis said, that she needed to be able to change her dreams and her goals. She understood that changing her athletic abilities allowed her to find a new talent. And because she was able to do this, she's having a great time in Sochi and may make bobsledding her permanent sport. Now, after we leave Sochi, we can see why it's so important to be able to be adaptable. If we're able to do this, we can make the most of our time on Earth. Julia Schmidt knows all about this. As a marathon runner, she understands the importance of adapting to change in new situations as she gets older. Because she's 86. Julia Schmidt started running when she was 50. And after years of a domestic housewife life and being stuck as a mother, she decided that she wanted to have a change and do something for herself. All her life, her goals and dreams had been for her family, so she wanted to do something to make her a little more physically fit. Now, I'm in cross country, and I think 3 miles is tough. I could never do 26.2, but that's what she was able to do and is still doing, as she just finished her last marathon at the age of 86. She realized, as C.S. Lewis said, that she sure wasn't too old to start a new dream or have a new goal. Because she was able to do this, she's making the most of her time on Earth by enjoying it for herself. And finally, we can see on a larger scale why it's so important to be open and receptive to change. Because if we're able to do this, then we will be able to inspire others to change. Ludwig van Beethoven, one of my favorite pianists, decided that this was the path he wanted to take when he switched from the harpsichord to the piano. In the 18th century, the main string instrument was the harpsichord, but because it didn't really have any dynamic range, Ludwig van Beethoven broke quite a few. With his frantic playing, it just wasn't his instrument. So when the pianoforte was developed, he took that as his signature instrument. He tested out many of them until he found the perfect one for him, and he actually ushered in a new age of pianos as being the new string instrument. He realized that many musicians around him weren't open to this change. It was something completely new and different, and people just weren't receptive to it. But he realized that if he made this his signature instrument and showed that even Ludwig van Beethoven could change, so would the rest of the music world. And even today, the piano is one of the most important instruments and is more important than the harpsichord, because Beethoven realized, as C.S. Lewis said, that because he wasn't afraid to make a change in his dreams and goals, he was able to inspire change in the music world. In retrospect, when looking back on today's C.S. Lewis quotation, which states, "You are never too old to start a new goal or dream a new dream," it's clear that Lewis is telling us that we have to be open to change. And this is for 3 key reasons. First, if we're open to change, we can find a new talent, just as Lolo Jones did. Next, we can be able to live the most of our life, like an 86-year-old marathon runner. But finally, we will be able to inspire others to change along with us, just like Ludwig van Beethoven. Norman Borlaug understood all of this and more when he realized that wrestling just wasn't his forte. Going into biology was a risky move because it was something totally different. But what we all can learn from him is that if we're able to change our dreams and goals to make it fit our own desires in the present, it's amazing what we can accomplish.
Alrighty.
Do this, we can.
Just making sure. Can you guys hear me? And could you all hear the video the entire time? Can I get a thumbs up or something? Can you hear me right now? And then could you hear the video the entire time? Yeah? Okay, cool. Because I actually shared my audio as well instead of using the mic, so I think that helped. All right, so obviously Alicia, Katie, and Andrew, I believe, are here, and I hope you guys watched the whole thing. If you would, I'm gonna have all of you share out, so it doesn't really matter who goes first, but if you want, go ahead, unmute, and tell me what are some of the things that she did great about the toolboxes. You can talk about any of them, you can talk about multiple of them. What did you think? All right, if no one wants to start, I'll have Katie start. Katie, what did you think?
Well, can you maybe go back on the PowerPoint so I forgot some of the names of the
Oh, yeah.
terms.
I also put it in the chat, but here they should be here.
So I noticed that in the start, she already has like an emphasis. And then she also has like pauses. When that one grammar was like 86, and after she put emphasis on that, she paused for a while. What else? Oh, well, I think she kept eye contact. Yeah. That,
Yeah.
I guess.
Great, thank you very much, Katie. I think obviously the eye contact is very hard to see. She's on stage and performing in front of everyone because she won state. But yeah, I'm sure she kept eye contact. I love that you brought up emphasis and pauses with an example, right? This means obviously you were listening and you identified it. The 86-year-old grandmother part, that was kind of like a shocking thing and also like a joke at the same time. And Sarah Kingsbury did a perfect job at placing emphasis on that and also used pauses, right? Pauses to create suspense in order to then say that shocking fact or that joke, and also pauses after that joke, right? Let's say you tell a joke, you want to give people time to, one, understand the joke and then react to the joke, right? You don't want to just tell a joke and then move on right away, because then people don't have time to laugh or have time to react, right? So pausing after your jokes, after punchlines, after important pieces of information is always great, and I'm so glad that you identified that, Katie. All right, let's go to Alicia. What did you think about her speech?
I think her voice is really I think I mean she used vocal with variety.
Yeah.
And her hand was keep moving. I think is using her face.
Mm-hmm.
And I also find out she used eye contact too.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any specific parts in the speech that stood out to you? Do you remember any parts of it?
No, I don't, sorry.
Okay, no worries. But yeah, definitely. So vocal variety, she definitely used vocal variety, right? You can tell sometimes she was speaking louder, softer, and then, but she had a lot of energy out there, right? Again, her arms and her hands essentially were moving a lot because that's about gestures. And then she also literally walked around the stage, right? Used her space and kept eye contact with the audience. These are all things, especially in person, that people have to do. And then gestures are the one thing that you can see as she talks, she uses gesture. That's probably one of the more noticeable things. All right, and then lastly, we have Andrew. If you're here, can you unmute and also tell us what you liked about the speech?
So she is keeping the hook all through the presentation, which I think is really great. And something which we think is kind of a funny joke, but it's actually true. She used those to hook to make sure like we don't switch to another video and keep participants, and also definitely using eye contact because she's now like facing at the sky for sure, and she pauses to make sure we have time to think, to kind of let her think that she's not rushing through. Instead, it looks like that she is well prepared for anything. And also, she used the space to kind of look around to make everything seems comfortable instead of like just standing there like a wood.
Yeah. Wow, that was great analysis. Thank you very much, Andrew. You touched on basically everything, and I think that was really great, right? I love how you mentioned she used the space to make people feel comfortable, right? To make people feel like they're a part of the speech. So you're not just standing still in the middle, you're engaging with the audience, you're moving closer to them, you're moving away from them, you're moving towards other people, right? Make people comfortable, involve them in your speech. That's how you make sure they're paying attention, right? And then also pauses, right? Giving us time to think. She also used pauses to hit the jokes that you mentioned, like the hook at the beginning to keep the audience entertained. There was that one joke about dwarf wheat, right? She said dwarf wheat. It's not really a joke, but then she paused and then she hit the punchline of, and that's no short thing to laugh at or something like that, right? She utilized all of these tools in order to, one, create jokes, hit those jokes, but also keep the audience engaged throughout their entire speech, right? Now, this speech wasn't too long. It was, I'd say, probably around 7 minutes or 6 minutes. It's one of the shortest speeches you'll hear, but it's great that you guys identified different toolbox tools in order to, make sure that you guys can identify them and see and start emulating what makes a great speaker, right? So the reason I'm teaching these tools to you is so that you guys can try and utilize them when you speak next time, right? So all of these things, obviously over Zoom it'll be different, but I'm trying to teach you stuff for in-person speaking because that's what you guys will be doing. So that's that. All right, so let's take a quick break. You guys have done a good amount of work already. Come back at 6:45 and then we'll end off the rest of the class with some other stuff. So come back at 6:45 and we'll take a 5-minute break. Hey Iris, we're currently taking a break. We have just 2 minutes left, so we'll be back at 6:45. Oh, hey, yeah. And then, yeah, although you missed the first 45 minutes, we'll have this recorded and sent out later. All right, 2 more minutes of break. All right. So it is. Shoot, my Wi-Fi. Okay, wait. I'm back. Can everyone hear me? If you're back and you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Yeah, Alicia's back. Katie's back. Andrew's back. And then Iris, if you're here and can hear me, can you give me a thumbs up? Perfect. Thank you. All right. Okay, so what we're gonna end with, let me share my screen again. So we don't actually have a lot of time to do this, so what I'm gonna do is push this to the next class. But just to give you all a heads up of what we might be doing is, obviously, since this is a speech course, I'm gonna need you all to give some speeches and to practice speeches, right? And so starting next week, this first week is more introductory, but starting next week, y'all are gonna have to like start talking a bit. And so we'll start very easily with something like this. This is just a fun prompt, right? I'm giving you 3 prompts. They're very fun. You're just answering one of these questions, but we're gonna do it like an actual speech, right? You wanna have an introduction, which is like, you can have a hook in there, something that attract the audience, and then your claim, right? Answer the prompt, and then go into 3 main points of, why. You have to answer the question of why. So if you're answering what is your dream career, you should have 3 reasons as to why that career is your dream career, right? So you have 3 reasons, and you'll talk through those main points, and then you'll wrap it all up in a short conclusion. Again, this is not going to be a long speech. This speech will be 2 to 3 minutes, okay? So I'll write that down, 2 to 3 minutes. Again, we'll do this in class next time. It'll be very short, but this is just so you guys can practice speaking, and so I can see where your speaking is at, all right? And I'll give you a lot of time to prepare for this, so you'll probably have like around 10 minutes to prepare, and then you'll each give a speech of 2 to 3 minutes. You can write on a note card, write on a piece of paper, something like that. But it'll be something like this, just so you guys get a heads up, because you guys are here today. That's great. But yeah, we don't have time to do this today, unfortunately. We ran out of time, but this is something we will be doing. And if you want to answer a different prompt, you can probably do that as well. But just a heads up, you're going to be actually speaking some more in these next few classes, all right? With that being said, we're going to go over some speech events again. Remember, I brought this up last time, but that was more introductory. That's competitive speaking. This time, I'm going to focus on speeches for the showcase. So if you don't know, at the very end of this speech camp, I believe that's the 9th time we meet, you will be performing a speech in front of your parents, family members maybe, and then obviously the other students in this class, to show your growth, to show how you've grown and how you're a better speaker through the things that I've taught you, right? And so what we're going to use is some of these speech events in order to help get you to that point, right? Because you want to have a speech to prepare and showcase at the end. And so we're going to use one of these speeches, like you're going to be writing or delivering a speech in one of these categories. And it's completely up to you which one you pick, but we'll go over them again, and I'll give you some advice on what I think is best. And then over the weekend, again, we're not meeting until Tuesday, you will start thinking about the event you want to do, which type of speech you want to do, and then the topic. What topic do you want to do, right? We need to start this early so that you have enough time to prepare. And also, this is good because if you start now, it'll be a lot easier to finish, and you'll be able to polish it as things go on. So you don't have to be scrambling at the very end. And then you'll sound very good, and hopefully deliver a very strong speech at the end, right? So I'll do a quick rundown of these again. We have public address events. Again, these are more standard speeches, such as an informative speech about any topic, literally anything you want, you can talk about it and just inform the audience about that topic. You're not taking a stance on this, right? You're not saying water bottles or plastic water bottles are bad for the earth. No, you're talking about water bottles, maybe how they're produced, how many people use them, right? The background, the history, and then the future of water bottles, stuff like that. That's an informative speech. But let's say you don't want to do just an informative speech, you do want to take a stance. That would be original oratory. So you could do another original oratory on a similar topic, like plastic water bottles, and this time you're proposing a solution. You're taking a stance. Are plastic water bottles bad? Do you want to ban them? Do you want them to be recycled more? What do you want to do? Take a stance, and then you go through the causes, effects, and solutions of this problem that you're trying to solve, right? So if you want to give a speech on solving a problem, an original oratory that's written by yourself can be a great way to do that, right? So you have informative, then original oratory. Special occasion speaking, we're going to try and avoid this unless you really want to do this. This is just more of a fun one where you're talking to a specific audience, but you're still trying to solve a problem, right? If you want to do something like this, let me know and we can definitely work through it. I have experience in this. I made state in this in my sophomore year. But I think an original oratory or an informative speech would be a lot easier and more straightforward to write. And so all of those you would write yourself, but they're very open-ended. You can talk about anything you want, basically, literally anything. Then you have some limited preparation stuff, which is extemporaneous speaking, impromptu, or radio. Again, extemporaneous speaking is about more politics, current events, the economy, right? If you're someone who's really interested in the news, current event, and have a lot of knowledge on that and want to attempt to do this event, which is probably one of the hardest events ever, again, you can. I will guide you through that. Otherwise, I guess a more easy thing to do would be impromptu speaking. Again, this is what I specialize in. Impromptu speaking, again, you're given prompts and you come up with a speech on the spot. Now, if one of you did this very well in the showcase for your friends and family, they would go crazy because this is so hard. This is the worst nightmare of so many people. But if you can pull it off, you would be given a few minutes, 2-3 minutes to prepare and then give like a 5-6 minute speech about it. That would be crazy. It would be insane. And you would do really well. If you want to do it, I can guide you along that, right? You just need examples, telling stories, have stories in your mind that you want to tell. Radio speaking, again, you can do this as well. This is more like giving a radio speech through a script. Now, this will focus so much more on vocal variety, intonation, emphasis. It's purely your voice, right? On the radio, you're not gesturing, you're not seeing, you're not using space. It's just your voice. If you are someone who wants to focus solely on using your voice, training your voice, making it sound as best as possible, and also giving commercials, right? You have to make things unique and stand out. Radio speaking is something that will focus in on all of that And it's a lot easier because you're just reading off of a script, right? So you don't have to write anything. You're reading off of a script, but you're solidifying it, making it perfect, right? So that's definitely an option for a lot of people. And then lastly, we have interpretations. Now, I'm going to try and avoid these because this is more like acting. For you guys, there's no real reason to be doing some of these, except I'm going to make a break here. These three, so oratorical declamation, poetry reading, and prose reading are all things we can be doing because OD, oratorical declamation, is you're just giving a speech that's been published already. So for example, Andrew, if you loved that TED Ed talk on Minecraft or a video game or anything else, you can just do an oratorical declamation by taking the transcript of that speech and then delivering it like it's your own speech. You don't have to write anything. You're literally just interpreting someone else's speech and delivering it in your own way. That is something very doable that all of you can do. I would highly suggest doing this because, again, it's easier. You don't have to write your own speech. And again, you're focusing on delivering it in your voice, your vocal variety, everything like that. Similarly, we have poetry reading and prose reading. So what you guys can do for this, if you love poetry or if you love stories, short stories, stuff like that, you can pick a piece of multiple pieces of poetry that you love, put them together, or multiple short stories that you love, put them together into like a booklet or type of thing. Again, I'll help you make it if you want to do it. It's not going to be super complex, but again, you're just reading the poetry or the prose in a very sophisticated manner, in a very speech-like manner that you're going to, again, have to use a lot of the tools that we learned today, right? You're not going to have to write your poetry. You're not going to have to write short stories, right? Again, you're taking stuff that's already been published. So in general, I would actually highly recommend these three. So I'm breaking this down one last time. In terms of potential speeches for the showcase, these are the things I would suggest, right? If you want to give a persuasive speech about solving a problem in the world and you want to talk so much about that, original oratory is the way to go. If you want to talk about a new technology or an event or something that you have a lot of knowledge about and you want to inform the audience about it, informative speaking is the way to go. You're not taking a stance. You're not saying if it's good or bad. You're just telling the audience about it and potentially what could come in the future, right? So like tech, right? Like electric cars or space or whatever, you can talk about that. And then again, these are the things I highly recommend. Oratorical declamation, you're reciting a published speech already, right? This is already published. You don't have to write it yourself and you're delivering it like it's your speech. And this is going to focus a lot on your voice and making sure you're speaking as best as possible using someone else's speech. This is probably, again, a lot easier. This would revolve around finding your favorite TED Talk, your favorite graduation speech, any speech on YouTube, right? Finding a speech that has a script and you can just go right ahead and do that, right? And then poetry, prose, right? If you like poetry, if you like prose, find some poetry, find some prose that you want and just start reading it, speak it, say it out loud, deliver it in a very, in a very emotional tone, deliver it in a satirical tone, happy tone, sad tone, right? You can experiment with so many things. Again, you're not writing it yourself. You're using someone else's and interpreting it yourself, right? And so those, both poetry and prose, would be my go-tos as well if you like that stuff. And then lastly, if you want to be bold, you can do impromptu speaking like I do. Again, I'll help you through that. You're basically sharing stories of so many people. We've watched 2 impromptu speeches already. Sarah Kingsbury did that as well. She told stories of 3 people, right? We have Norman Borlaug in the introduction who made Dwarf Wheat. We have the 80-year-old runner, the grandma who ran marathons. We have a Beethoven who invented the piano, right? All of these things, you're telling stories in impromptu. And then lastly, we have radio speaking. If you want to focus solely on your voice, not worry about any hand gestures, whatever, and just give a speech like a radio broadcast, radio speaking would be the way to go. These are the things I suggest. So after rambling on all that, you guys need to start thinking about this, all right? So over the weekend, think about and choose which type of speech you would like to do for the showcase. Begin researching, finding topics or finding speeches, and next week we'll start working on our speeches while focusing on the specific toolbox, right? So come to class next Tuesday with a speech event picked and an idea ready. So again, I'll send out the slideshow later, I think later tonight. Look through these speeches, and what I want you to do is go on IHSA, again, go on YouTube and search up videos of the speeches that you might want to do and see how it's delivered, see what it's all about, right? And then from there, start planning which one do you want to do and what do you want to talk about, all right? Cool. So that's it for today's class. I will be sending out this stuff over email, and then hopefully you guys start preparing, do some of your homework over the weekend, and so we can start strong next week, all right? Thank you for being here. Hopefully you learned something, and I'll see you guys on Tuesday.